Hi, everyone. This is Mac Pierre Louis from instantmediations.com. And along with my colleague, Natalia, we're going to be introducing you today to Thomas Giglione. And he's going to bring us some great information from Vietnam. And at this time, let Natalia introduce Thomas.
So Natalia Olowska, co-founder like Mac of instantmediations.com. And it is our greatest pleasure to welcome our second speaker in our series, The Mediation in the Times of the Pandemic. And not a better person to talk about it since he's so experienced in mediation in the Asian region and just a great person. Thomas, please let us know something more about you in your own words.
Hi, Natalia and Mac. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Where do I begin? Well, I'm not from Vietnam. Originally, I'm from Toronto, Canada. I've been living in Vietnam now 10 years. I was 3 years in China, so it's about 13 years I've been in Asia. And basically, I've been doing cross-border disputes, lecturing, doing workshops recently on employment. I'm an ombudsperson, doing HR workshops and negotiation skills. I'm a guest lecturer at Hanoi Law University. I was a guest lecturer at York University in Toronto. Basically, I'm here in Vietnam, basically resolving disputes and various mostly commercial disputes, I would say cross-border and commercial disputes. Vietnam is where I live, but I view myself as living in Southeast Asia. I'm 2 hours away, flight from Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia. So basically, Vietnam is the hub for Southeast Asia for myself. And I've been a commercial mediator probably over 20 years. I was a court-appointed mediator in Ontario, Canada, in the Supreme Court of Ontario. And I am the only non-Vietnamese in all of Vietnam that is accredited by the Ministry of Justice as a mediator. And so that's an honor. I don't know. Well, the last time I checked, I don't think there's any other non-Vietnamese accredited by the Ministry of Justice. I'm the Vice Director of VEMC Mediation Center. It is one of 5 in the entire country. And basically, it's a team of 4 of us in various sectors working in mediation. I've been involved with ODR probably since its inception. I'm also an arbitrator. I worked in ODR probably about 9 years ago or 10 years ago with online arbitration with a platform called the Virtual Courthouse. So I've always been a big proponent of ODR, and I like to acknowledge Natalia and Mac for bringing this platform to the world, and I'm honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And based on your vast experience, you've been doing mediations in the physical world and the in-person world for so long, but like the rest of us, you've now been doing mediations online for quite a while. So how do you find yourself in these times of mediations during the pandemic? How do you find yourself personally and professionally?
Like I said, I've been doing this over 20 years. And I have to tell you, every mediation for me, I have to admit, I'm learning something. I have to adapt, I have to change or something. I've been doing online for quite some time anyway. So for me, it's not a big adaptation, but it's affected me as far as doing training workshops and such. The pandemic kind of, reduced the income, doing workshops and training sessions. So we've tried doing training sessions online, and it's not the same as the interaction and such. But the mediation and the arbitration, that's still pretty stable. But every mediation, there's always something that you're learning. And the other parties are learning themselves on how to do a breakout room, and how to do how do we do caucuses and things like that. So it seems like every mediation is either a learning experience for me or for the participants. So that's what I like to relate to you, that there's never a plateau where you say, okay, I'm done. I know it all.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that. And tell me, so you, with your experience, especially in the region that you are professionally active, you have a lot to say about mediation, arbitration, about going online. So with your own eyes, how do you see the situation of the pandemic affect mediation? How did mediation change? Whether it changed, if yes, how?
Well, it's become online mediation has become essential now. It's crucial for a lot of negotiations. Now it's being integrated with the court system. I'm quite lucky because in Ontario, it was a team of 5 of us that introduced annexed or court annexed mediation about 18 years ago as a pilot project. And now I see before it was court annexed mediation was frowned upon by traditional facilitative mediators, and now it's a necessity, or else you're going to have a pileup of a lot of cases. So for me now, I think there was kind of oil and water between the legal system and mediation, and now with Singapore started, well, one of the initial pioneers of MedArb, integrating mediation and arbitration into the legal system. So I think now it's essential. I don't think there's no going back. The pandemic, I think, is here for a little while, maybe a year or so. So I think you're going to see more and more of a trend of everything going online, and probably not going back for quite some time.
So when you're dealing with online mediations, how do you deal with the strong negative emotions that might come from people? Because the pandemic's brought a lot of very weird emotions out of a lot of people across the last year. So how do you deal with it?
Well, when I first started mediating, I had a colleague who was into divorce mediation, and I was always commercial mediation. I was doing commercial disputes under the Ministry of the Attorney General, and I was just curious about it. And I said, can I co-mediate with you? And she said, sure, I would love to get your perspective. And after the caucus, I said, I told my colleague, I said, no, I'm not, this is crazy. This is insanity. It's not about, win-win here. It's how can we destroy each other? It was the very first mediation, and it was very, it was upsetting for me to watch. So now I don't do any family mediation. So things are pretty cool, and they're pretty, I'm usually dealing with the counsel from both parties or several parties. So the emotion part is almost non-existent for what the kind of mediation that I do. That's yeah. So basically, I think I'm more laid back and easygoing, and that is kind of counter to the way that lawyers might handle themselves in online setting to make it more like a hearing or a judicial process. And for a lot of them, it's kind of a learning experience too, seeing a mediator online. A lot of them have never gone to a mediation in this part of the world. It's in fact, most of the mediations I do, it's the first time for counsel to even conduct a mediation or be part of a mediation.
And knowing that you're based in Vietnam, but the entire region is open to you, can you tell us how mediation in Vietnam is different from the other countries in this Southeastern Asia? And yeah, that might be pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, I've been living here 10 years. My wife is Vietnamese. I have three children. And my wife says that I know Vietnamese thinking or the insight probably better than most Vietnamese. Because, you see it from an objective point of view. A lot of Vietnamese don't see their cultural biases. And I actually teach cultural biases and disputes that arise because of cultural biases. And I have to say, well, the whole society is different than it is in the West. The power imbalance is much more extreme in the mediations. They're not equal. In fact, I'm going to disclose something. I don't know, maybe I'm going to be regretting this later, but I actually tell people not to do any mediations in Vietnam. I prefer to do them in Singapore or Hong Kong for one reason, for the best interest of the client. Because, in mediations, we all acknowledge in our mediation agreement that the mediation is private and confidential. Well, that is impossible in Vietnam because everything's public. So, in Canada, mediators are protected. And here there's no protection for mediators regarding privacy. So there's a lot of new mediators that are coming on board in Vietnam, and they don't disclose that to the client because here mediators are powerless to ensure the confidentiality. So now, in the best interest of my clients, I have to put that in the mediation agreement that it cannot be confidential just because of the legal culture here, that everything is public. So I'm reluctant. It's up to the clients to know that, but I have to be upfront with them that I cannot ensure their confidentiality. And that for me just goes against my whole perspective of facilitated mediation, and it doesn't really work for me. So if I had, I basically counsel the clients and tell them, let's do this somewhere else because I cannot ensure your confidentiality.
And when you mediate online in Vietnam, does it differ then?
Well, if I'm mediating Vietnamese with Vietnamese, it affects them. But if I'm doing mediations where the parties in other countries where I've done such mediations, I don't have to worry about that. It's in the area where the dispute arose. So, but if the dispute originated here in Vietnam, I have to tell them that I cannot ensure confidentiality, and that doesn't fit well with me, to be honest. So okay. You guys are lucky. You've got that little bit, because what happens is, if you disclose that, nothing here is confidential, it's like you're going to be hitting a brick wall as a mediator. So it's, you guys are lucky. It's easier for you because you've got that release where the parties can basically feel free that they're, nothing that they say will be used against them in the future proceedings.
Yeah, that's very interesting. How do you think it would work if one party is, say, in the US, but another party, let's say it's a family mediation involving an international dispute over a child relocation. One
Yes.
parent is in Texas, one parent's in Vietnam. Of course, to the Texas parent, I would tell them, hey, whatever we say at mediation stays at mediation, but that might
Mhm.
affect, it if Vietnam or the person in Vietnam doesn't abide by the same rules.
Well, I have to be careful what I say, because here they have very, how do I say it? They have strict rules about what could be said in public. But here, everything that I say is in public. If I counsel people and I do something that is contrary to government policy or government dictate, then that could come back on me. So I have to be careful. Like in China, you have to be careful about what you say. So there's always that restriction also that affects the negotiations there. So yeah, you have to be wary of what you say in such a setting.
It's very fascinating, actually.
Mhm.
Thank you. Natalia, I'll proceed.
Yes, please do.
So yeah, we had a couple other questions involving how do you connect with clients and other mediators, and how do you persuade people to go online and do online mediations instead of just in person? Could you speak a little bit about that? How do you get clients? Or do they come to you? And then how do you work with other mediators around you?
Well, I'm kind of, look different than the rest. And so I have this, mediation, Thomas, I'm the guy, kind of thing. So I really don't do any marketing here in Vietnam. As soon as any discussion is about mediation or any conference or seminar, my name is mentioned. It's not because I'm famous because of my marketing. It's basically because I'm non-Vietnamese, and I actually was one of the stakeholders that actually introduced mediation to Vietnam. I don't take full credit for it, but I was one of the proponents that brought this in here. So I'm the mediation guy, and in Vietnam, and I still have my contacts back in Canada, and I miss my fellow colleagues, and they might refer something that might be happening in China just because it's happening near Vietnam. They think, okay, Thomas, it's kind of, they've got this still the tribal view about mediation, that it's not just a platform for worldwide. So yeah.
And since everybody, because of the pandemic, got online, and you can do everything online, you meet online, you chat online, you educate online. What is your recipe not to get overwhelmed by that, not to get tired? What do you do to cope, to use it reasonably?
I would say humor. If you can't take a joke, well, even ourselves on this interview here, here we are, mediators working online, and we had a technical glitch. It was not an issue. We just laughed about it. And there are people that are versed to be online, like young people, and older people are struggling with it. I just say, sense of humor. And I have to tell you that living in Asia, I got influence living in China, living a little bit in India by the Eastern philosophy. And, whenever you say mediation, they confuse it with meditation, as you know, right? Right? Oh, you're meditating. Oh, you're teaching meditation. That's 90% of the population, not just in Vietnam, but anywhere in the world. Know it. You're all mediators. It's often confused with mediation. But now I could see the synchronicity with mediation and meditation, because with meditation, you're just in the present. You're not dealing with case law in the past, like lawyers typically would do in a legal setting. you're looking more towards the present. Let's deal with the facts, forget about the, the past, and look towards, planning for the future. So I meditate every morning. I get up at 5:30, and I see that there is a connection between meditation and mediation, where you focus the mediation in the present. And, one of the core principles of meditation is being in the present. So I would say that if I didn't meditate, I think I'd have a difficult time even living in a culture like this. People often, when they go to live in another country, they get homesick, and they go through like a crisis, cultural biases and things like that. But that continues because things are not the same as you're used to. And so I would say humor and meditation is my salvation.
Got it. And so when you've completed your mediation, there's probably going to be an impasse where there's no resolution, or a settlement where the parties, go on their happy ways, or something in between, maybe a partial mediation or a continuation. So how do you overcome an impasse in an online mediation versus an in-person mediation?
That's a very good question. Well, in-person mediation, it's easier to go through and to deal with impasse because of caucuses. I think caucuses for me are the key, where and I have to be honest with you, they don't have the same power as a caucus online, where you get them onto, into another room, Zoom room, and it is more difficult online. It's not preferred, but it is more of a challenge for a mediator to overcome that impasse. I would say for me, when you talk about impasse, for me it's caucus. For me, that's my forte is caucusing, and caucusing, putting people in another room and putting people in another room online is not the same. It sounds the same, but in practicality, it's not as powerful as it is. So it is very challenging. You've got a very good point there, discerning that. So being a mediator now, I'll tell you, is a lot more challenging going online. If you don't have the natural skills of a mediator, you're gonna falter, because it is more challenging to do a mediation online. I have to admit, it is much more challenging. And if you don't have the experience of dealing with how you would deal with it in offline, it's gonna result in some frustration and some failures.
And as far as we know, COVID brought quite a lot of new things for you. And this is fascinating, because you were on the other part of the globe. Let me mention once again that out of people we have here, Mark and Kimberly are in Texas. I'm in Warsaw. You're in Vietnam. But COVID changed a lot. You even named it creating a domino effect. What was it? What did you mean?
Yeah, as I'm getting older, I'm starting to see the synchronicity in life. There's a connectiveness, and as you get older, you start thinking, is this destiny, or is this, what is this, and you kind of you get perplexed by it, and I think with COVID is a tragedy for the world, and but humanity has a way of overcoming the worst tragedies in life, and COVID is another tragedy. And out of tragedy, sometimes something happens that is good, and that's just reality. That's just life, and in many areas, you hear of stories where people overcome tragedy and in their lives, and how overcoming that tragedy made them a better person. So I would say that the COVID is making me a better person and a better mediator, and actually expanded my horizons of doing other types of mediation. And I'll just go through it very quickly. I've been using permission blockchain for documents under the Troc platform that was introduced by the Internet Bar Association by Jeffrey. And I thought, well, how can this be incorporated in other ways? And during the COVID, we were actually locked down here for about 2 weeks. And, my wife was doing watercolors, and I thought, well, I'm going to start dabbling on it too. I'm not much for television or Netflix. So I resurrected my painting and started working on that. And then I was very interested about Vietnamese painting. It's called Sun Mai lacquer painting. And I chatted online with the community of artists, and I got a mentor to actually teach me this, it's lacquer painting, Sun Mai lacquer painting. And then he said, oh, after the, this lockdown, come over to my studio, and then I'll teach you some more. And so from that, and then I thought, wait a second. So the artist was complaining that there's a lot of fake art in Vietnam, and he's afraid of selling the art here in Vietnam because somebody will copy it and all that. And then he told me that some artists, to ensure provenance now, they actually take a piece of their hair and they embed it into the art to show, in case there's a dispute, that they could do a DNA tracing on that art to relate it to the artist. And so I thought, wait a second, this is how you can use permission blockchain. And so I helped artists to put their art online using permission blockchain. And then after I got into the art community, I started writing an article, and then out of the blue, somebody from France asked me if they can help them with a dispute on an art dispute on a mediation. And that's still ongoing. So I never imagined that I'd be involved in resolving an art dispute. And now I'm considering, because I have a passion for art, marketing that niche area of art disputes. And there is a special arbitration in Milan, an arbitration center in Milan that I discovered I never knew existed, where they do arbitrations for art relating to, royalties and such. So yeah, the COVID, created that situation, but yet it's opened up some opportunities that I would never have imagined.
Very fascinating. So can you tell us a little bit about your Canadian pilot hobby?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a long story, but I'll try to keep it short. When I was about 16 years old, 17 years old, my brother, my father, myself, we were in a car accident, and we had just a minor trauma, but we each got a settlement. And I remember my father giving me, he says, "This is yours. It's $3,000. You could do what you want with it." So I said, "I want to fly." So my mother
not to have a car accident anymore.
Yes, yeah. So I got into flying, and as a hobby, and just flying on the weekends and such. And then one time when I started venturing traveling the world in Argentina, and that somebody noticed that I put down pilot as my hobby pilot. And somebody noticed, I think it was noticed, and they said, "You're a mediator and you're a pilot?" I said, "Yeah, just a hobby pilot, just VFR, just small Cherokees and such." "Oh, would you like to introduce a course introduced by ICAO International Civil Aviation Organization, which is the head office in Montreal, Canada. And I thought, oh, where did you get my name and everything? And he says, well, we thought you'd be a perfect fit. And, you know, you're English speaking, and we need our pilots to learn some situational procedures, you know, in case of bomb threats. This was right after 9/11. And so there was a lot of concern about, you know, terrorism and things like that. And I said, well, I could do a workshop for you. So I did a workshop. I did a situation. I wrote down, I made role plays. You know, when you're doing mediation, you're doing role plays. And I did role plays, designed role plays. I thought, well, I could do, fire on board, or, bomb, all these different crisis situations. And from that, when I did that, I put that on my LinkedIn, and all of a sudden I got more requests to do crisis negotiations. That's how that started. So, you know, from a tragedy, well, not a big tragedy, you know, a car accident, you know, I'm doing crisis negotiations for the airline industry. So that's died off, I think, because of, you know, the workshops and the COVID. But once, you know, the COVID situation settles down, I could see there'd be more demand for that type of training.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And actually, this is what you show as a perfect thing in life. Out of something that can be a tragedy, something difficult for you, you can create an opportunity that then gives you even more business, like you did. Out of hobby, you can create something good, but you have so many different interests. And we also know that one of your successes is actually training, because you've trained law students in so many different areas. We already know that you train law students in mediation, and you also train law students online in Cambridge, online legal English. So how do you do that? What do you want us to know about it?
Well, that's funny you say. I was teaching mediation in Argentina quite a long time ago, almost 15, 17 years ago. And, you know, you still keep contacts, you know, either they find you on Facebook or something. And my law student in Buenos Aires, Argentina, is now a judge in Argentina, doing, so that's, you know, we keep in touch on WhatsApp. And I came across an opportunity with Cambridge Law in the UK to do legal English online. It's basically you could do a 10-hour course online. You get a certificate from Cambridge Law, and also you get certified professional development. And so I just set it up, put it on my website, and my colleague, I call her my colleague, she was my law student, said, oh, we need this in Argentina. So here, you know, again, something from the past where my student now is now promoting legal English online with Cambridge Law in partnership with myself. So yeah, it's always comes back around somehow. Call it karma, serendipity, whatever you do, but you got to be open to it and not resist whenever these things come up. So I thought I'd share a little bit about that now I put legal English as part of options for workshops. That makes it interesting. It's not just for lawyers, it might be for legal officers of companies or even legal translators. So it's it allows for more networking and more opportunities when you're marketing as a mediator. You kind of put out what are your strengths and what are the things that you can offer not only the public but other mediators, other people in the profession. Yeah, I'm a person that basically feels that put your strengths out there, and somebody's going to need some of those strengths.
It's awesome. So you create your own opportunities by taking a risk, by putting yourself out there.
Yes.
And one of the benefits that you got from some of the risk taking you've done was actually meeting your wife, right? So
Yes,
when you
yes.
were doing the crisis, can you tell us a little about that?
Well, I just came here on holidays. Can you believe it? I came here on holidays, and
It's so dangerous to make holidays. I can see that.
yes. So I came here on holidays, and I was just, you know, I was in the hotel room. I was only here for a week. I was lecturing at Fudan University in Shanghai, and I was just here on holidays. And I was just checking online on what's happening here on the internet, and I saw something about training for air traffic controllers, and I started looking into it, and they wanted more. Apparently they went through other trainers, but they couldn't speak English. They were either French pilots, or they were looking for people to train their air traffic controllers in English and also crisis negotiations. So I said, and I was just in my hotel room, and I just applied for it, and just see what happened. And they called me, would you like to come for an interview? And I said, well, I'm kind of busy. I'm on holidays. And they said, well, where are you? I says, I'm at my hotel. Can we come over to your hotel? So they interviewed me for a job I didn't want. And I was with a baseball cap, a t-shirt and shorts and sandals, and being interviewed for a job. And they asked me about my mediation and training, and if I could do crisis negotiations. And I says, wait a second, I could design your role plays. I could do all that for you. You don't need to buy anything. You know, I saved them money, and I says, don't need to get other experts. I can do this for you. And so I sold myself, but I didn't want the job. And so anyways, believe it or not, she called me while I'm leaving for at the gate to go back to Shanghai. And she called me and she says, Thomas, are you going to take the job? I go, I'm just going on to boarding the flight. I'm going back to China. And she said, well, what's the problem? Why won't you take the job? I says, well, your salary, the amount you're paying is too low. Oh, we'll increase it. I said, well, I don't have a house or an apartment. We'll give you a house. You could stay at Vietnam Airlines. Everything I said, they just found you know. So here I am in the situation. I thought, what should I do? I would love this opportunity because I've never trained air traffic controllers. So I was reading a book called The Dice Man, where in this book, they roll a dice for every major decision. So I had a Chinese coin. I flipped it at the gate, and I said, okay, heads, I stay, tails, I go. And it turned up heads. And I stayed. Wow. And the people at Fudan University were angry at me. I left all my clothes, everything back in China. And I had a 6-month contract to do training nationwide on crisis negotiation and a little bit of aviation English. So again, that all comes back to, and then that all comes back to that car accident I had when I was 16 years old, and I got a $3,000 claim. And 8 years ago, my wife now, she was my student, and she's an air traffic controller at Nobai Airport. Now she's been doing that for 13 years. So, so from that car, if I didn't have that car accident, I would never have been married here in Vietnam.
In Vietnam.
And now I have, I have 3 children. So it's a circle of life.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And it's not that everything you've done, you also made your students win and gold and silver medals in mediations. And that was exactly at the signing of the famous Singapore Convention.
In August,
actually, on this,
2 years ago. Yes, 2 years ago.
Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so I was teaching negotiation skills, you know, at Hanoi Law University. I was not teaching mediation, and you know, and I thought, you know, can we do this? So I mentioned it to some of the students, and then the university supported it and funded it a little bit, and they said, let's do it. They had no training in mediation, had no clue what it is other than what I told them about it, because I was just teaching the, you know, basic negotiation, drafting contracts and things like that. And we looked at it, we looked at the roster, and you know, really, really, you know, good universities, law faculties. I think there were about, I can't remember, about over 20 of them. And I said, let's give it a shot. And so I just met with them once a week for a couple hours, giving them some pointers. And then later on, the university funded their trip, and I thought this is a great opportunity for me because I want to be for the signing ceremony. They coincided, and lo and behold, I was just really, really surprised that my students did what I actually asked them to do. They just followed everything I taught them. I coached them, and I was in shock and awe that they won two rounds, 1 gold and 1 silver, out of you know, universities that teach mediation, you know, that have mediation clubs. So I was flattered. I was flattered.
It's awesome. So thank you so much. But before we wrap up, wanted to just give you the opportunity to give your contact information in case anybody wants to meet you, go and get to know you better.
Yeah. Yeah, you could just look VEMC Mediation. You could Google it, VEMC Mediation. There's not too many mediation centers in Vietnam, and you could find me that way. So VEMC Mediation.
Thank you so much. Well, Thomas, thank you so much for the time that you shared with us today. We appreciate this information, and I was very interested in learning what you have to say about mediation in Vietnam as well as in Southwest Asia. So, Southeast Asia, I'm sorry. So thank you again for this knowledge that you've imparted to us today.
Thanks, Mac.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the opportunity. Natalia, thank you so much. It's been an honor. And I'm very impressed with your platform. I really am. I've seen a lot of platforms, and I would say that it's user-friendly, it's professional, and I wish you the best of luck with it. And I'll do whatever I can to help you promote it because it's you've done a good job.
Thank you for becoming our advisor then. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And hope to see you soon.
Okay, bye, Natalia.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.